Fairy Finn curiously asked. Ancient formulas for making pills. What is that, Master Lois? Lois replied, I found it in my father's library while researching ways to enhance the effectiveness of the pills. I've been experimenting with different types of pills and got caught by my father after scolding me. He sealed it back, but who would have thought my research to overcome the limited time in life would be so useful like this? Lois began flipping through the book, and after a while, he exclaimed, found it. The double-bracketed happiness-boosting pill for couples experiencing boredom. Just a few drops can reignite the dying flame of love, the one-time solution, a 100% successful pill for couples wanting to conceive. Then he put the book in the wardrobe, turned to the two curious kids, and said, if anyone asks for me, tell them you don't know. The two kids nodded in understanding. Then Lois extended his hand, closed his eyes, and started chanting the incantation to perform the magic, while the two kids moved closer, curious to see. Immediately, the cabinet behind them emitted a violet light, transforming into a gateway opening into a spacious room. Lois said, I think this space is enough. Now let's start making the pills seriously. Days passed, and in the castle kitchen, Fairy Finn was bustling around, observing that there was no one around. She then took 2 bottles of purple medicine from the portal, recalling, Finn, listen carefully, sprinkle these pill portions onto the ingredients that the Duke and Duchess will consume tomorrow. Remember, only on the items they will eat. Back to reality, Fairy Finn was now standing before a pile of ingredients, wondering how she could know which ones the Duke and Duchess would consume. Frustrated, she exclaimed, I don't know, I'll just sprinkle it on everything. They're making bread to eat, so I'll sprinkle it on the cereals too. She then poured the contents onto everything. After a while, she proudly declared, the task is completed. Now, back to report, hee hee. Then she transformed into a golden beam of light and flew away. The next night, Lois was lurking in the hallway, silently pondering, that room must be the Duke and Duchess's bedroom. If Finn follows the food instructions correctly, the food consumed by the Duke and Duchess today will contain the pill. Suddenly, voices approached, and Lois quickly hid to avoid detection. So I said, one voice said. Oh my, really? Confessing suddenly, he must be insane. Tonight's the night, another voice responded. Wow, sounds fantastic, came another reply. After they had moved away, Lois sighed in relief, phew, luckily I escaped. Then he continued to look into the room. Inside, the Duke and his wife were present. Occasionally, the Duke glanced at his wife, while she had her face turned away, silently thinking, how strange, why is my heart pounding wildly today? Lost in thought, she was suddenly approached by the Duke, who gently placed his hand on her shoulder and tenderly said, Darling, you look wonderful today. The Duchess looked up and replied. The Duke of yours, and then they held hands. I guess I don't need to say what happened next, huh? Meanwhile, outside the door, Lois was still standing there with his eyes closed, saying, this must be a sacred night. Suddenly, the 2 mischievous kids appeared out of nowhere and exclaimed, Lois, what are you doing here, talking about sacredness? Startled, Lois jumped and quickly covered his mouth to avoid making noise, as the Duke and Duchess were engaged in intimate activities inside. The 2 kids continued to inquire, Lois, what's going on? Tell us. Lois hastily whispered into their ears while dragging them away, you don't need to know about those things, the kids cried out. Ouch, that hurts, and Lois turned back to look at the room, thinking that they had done what needed to be done. Then they all went back to their rooms. The next morning, the Duchess was walking with her 2 maids and remarked, it's been a long time since we've had such beautiful weather. It seemed like her mood was quite good after a night of passionate intimacy. Walking down the hallway, the Duchess encountered 2 servants frantically searching for something. Concerned, she approached and asked, what's keeping you so busy this early? Seeing the Duchess, one of the servants stuttered, oh, ma'am, it's just. Without hesitation, she rushed forward and flung open the door, loudly confronting the maid inside who was tidying up. What madness is this? Why are the children nowhere to be found? The maid, visibly frightened, cried as she explained, we entered this room this morning, but the children were nowhere to be seen. We've been searching everywhere for them. Suddenly, another maid appeared holding a letter. Ma'am, there's a letter on the table. It says. Before she could finish, the Duchess snatched it from her hand, hastily unfolding it and reading with a concerned expression. The letter read, we believe our disappearance will surprise everyone, but even in parting, there is a meeting. Now we are setting off on our own path. We sincerely thank you for the love you've shown us during our time here and hope you will quickly overcome the pain of losing a child. In the near future, a new life will come to the Duke and Duchess. Please give it with the same love and warmth that everyone has shown to us. With sincere gratitude, Lois and others. After reading the letter, the Duchess was deeply moved and exclaimed, oh! These children already know everything. It's all my fault. It seems I've burdened these children with my personal wishes, but what does this new life mean? A few weeks later, a doctor was examining the Duchess when he suddenly exclaimed, that's good news, madam. You are pregnant with a new life. Upon hearing the phrase, new life, the Duchess felt a sense of familiarity. Suddenly, she turned to her husband and exclaimed, ah! Yes, that letter. So, the new life mentioned in the letter is. The Duke continued, it seems those children knew beforehand that you would become pregnant. Upon hearing this, the Duchess felt deeply moved. Those children must be prophets sent by the divine. Then the Duke gave the order, we cannot miss this rare opportunity. Let's open the food reserves and distribute bread to all the people immediately. A moment later, when the people received the bread, they were very happy. That year, the Kingdom of Canberg recorded the highest birth rate in history. The unintentional gift created from a small incident would later lead to a significant butterfly effect, but that's still a story from a distant future. As for Lois and the companions, they have now left the kingdom. The two mischievous kids exclaimed, Lois, Lois, I love traveling so much. That's right, let's do it again and again. Lois turned back, emotionless, and said, we're still traveling for at least another 10 years. Hearing this, the two kids jumped up and said. Instead of 10 years, let's travel for 100 years. Yes, 100 years. At this point, Lois felt speechless with these two. He thought to herself, I've wasted too much time in this kingdom already. If unexpected situations like this continue to occur, this journey will only be prolonged. To shorten the travel time, we need information to quickly cross this continent, but there's still no solution at the moment. Then the two mischievous kids shattered Lois's train of thought. Kani said, Lois, Lois, why aren't there any monsters now? The little rascal Khan chimed in, I'm confident I can catch a monster. Lois replied, hey, there are 3 dragons wandering around emitting a very distinct smell. What kind of crazy monsters would dare to come near us? Hearing this, the two mischievous kids sniffed themselves all over and said, smell? Do we have a smell? But I don't smell anything. Khan continued, if that's the case, then there must be some robbers, right? Kani added, that's right, no robbers at all. Lois just sighed, with such a wide and clear view in all directions and only vast white snow around. Even if there were robbers, where would they come from? Unless they suddenly sprout from the ground. As soon as Lois finished speaking, 3 figures emerged from beneath the ground behind him. They said, don't move and hand over everything you have. Witnessing this scene, the mischievous kids' wishes became reality. They exclaimed, wow, they've appeared. The robbers emerged from beneath the ground, and Lois, equally surprised, couldn't believe her eyes. Is this for real? He thought to herself. One of the robbers, with one eye covered, looked at Lois and then turned to smack his companion's head, shouting, you fools, they're just kids. We've been stuck in this freezing snow all day just to catch these brats. What do we do now? The other robber chimed in, yeah, looking at their clothes, they seem to come from a wealthy family. Why don't we kidnap them and demand ransom? After some consideration, the one-eyed robber said, all right, better than going back empty-handed. He then ordered the other two, what are you waiting for? Go and capture them. The two robbers approached Lois, who spoke up loudly, hold on a minute. Don't you find something strange here? The robber, puzzled, asked, what are you talking about? Lois continued, just 3 kids in the middle of nowhere with no guardians around. If I were you, I'd feel very uneasy. After hearing this, the 2 robbers glanced around hastily, then said, so you mean there are adults nearby? Lois replied, no, there's no one around. The 2 asked further, then why did you say that? Then Lois began to employ some psychological tactics, saying, let's use our brains a bit, shall we? At this point, Fairy Finn whispered to Lois from behind, what should we do, Master Lois? Lois then put on a cruel and cunning expression, sticking out his tongue and saying, what to do? These guys must have stolen treasure, right? We'll rob them of everything without leaving a single coin behind, haha. Then the 2 mischievous kids piped up again, Lois, let's go play some more. Yes, let's go play with those guys some more. Lois turned around and said, what? Play? What nonsense are you talking about? Then he thought to himself, but hold on, that idea isn't bad. If we're planning to rob them, it would be more advantageous to raid their hideout, wouldn't it? Suddenly, the one-eyed robber shouted, what are you all doing? Why are you standing there staring like that? I said we need to capture them immediately. After speaking, he turned to look at Lois. At this point, Lois had raised both hands, causing the robbers to freeze in place, and the other 2 were also surprised by this action. Lois then said, we surrender. We will obediently follow you. Please don't harm us. This chapter ends here. Please leave your comments below, and I hope you'll subscribe to my channel. Your support motivates me to release the next chapter soon. Thank you very much, goodbye.